The sun dipped behind the canyon walls, casting long shadows across the dirt trail that wound through the dry land like a forgotten scar. Emily Harper tugged gently on the reins, urging her chestnut mare, Lily, to slow as they descended into the basin. The air smelled of dust, sagebrush, and something else, something faint but metallic, like blood left too long in the sun. She heard it before she saw it, a faint, broken wheeze, just enough to send a ripple of unease down her spine. Lily stopped, ears flicking forward, nostrils flaring. Emily narrowed her eyes and scanned the scrub ahead. Then she saw the shape slumped near a thicket of thornbush and rock. At first, it looked like a pile of torn leather, discarded and windblown. But then it moved. She dismounted in one fluid motion, boots crunching on the parched earth. Her voice was low, cautious. "Easy there, boy." It was a Mustang. Barely. The creature was collapsed on its side, ribs heaving, blood streaked across its chest and legs in long, dry trails. One hind leg was twisted beneath it, swollen at the joint, but it was the eyes that froze her in place, feral, exhausted, but disturbingly alert. There was intelligence there. More than that, there was pain. The kind that didn't come from a fall or a fight. The kind that had been carried for a long, long time. Emily knelt slowly, extending her hand but not reaching for him. "You poor thing," she whispered, her voice catching on a lump in her throat. "What happened to you?" As the Mustang flinched at the sound, the dust shifted just enough to reveal something under his matted fur. A raised scar in the shape of a brand, only it wasn't like any brand she'd ever seen. It wasn't a rancher's initials or symbol. It looked more like a mark burned in with precision, square-edged, intentional, but utterly foreign. Emily stood and turned to her mare. "We're not leaving him." By the time she returned with a rope halter and a makeshift splint from her saddle pack, the Mustang was barely conscious. Still, when she moved close, he raised his head, not in defiance, but in silent endurance. He didn't fight her as she slid the halter over his nose, didn't resist when she braced his injured leg with strips of leather and cloth. But his eyes never left her, as if he were measuring her, judging whether to trust her or give up entirely. Getting him home took hours. She walked beside Lily, guiding both horses slowly under the stars, whispering now and then just to fill the silence. "You're not alone anymore," she said once, when the Mustang stumbled and nearly collapsed. He kept walking. Back at the ranch, the barn lights flickered on. Her father stood at the gate, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Ray Harper was a man of few words and even fewer opinions he hadn't already carved in stone. Emily didn't wait for him to speak. "He's hurt bad. Might not make it through the night." Ray looked the horse over with a frown, eyes narrowing at the brand. "Where'd you find him?" "Canyon Trail, near Dead Rock Ridge." He stepped closer, examined the leg, the wounds, then the brand. Something shifted behind his eyes, but he said nothing. Instead, he opened the gate and let her guide the Mustang into the barn. Inside, Emily cleared out an old stall and laid down fresh straw. She spoke softly as she worked, brushing away blood, dirt, and dried sweat with a damp cloth. The horse flinched when she touched certain scars, especially the one near his shoulder, shaped like a lightning bolt. It wasn't a natural scar. It was too clean, too deliberate. Ray leaned against the stall door, silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "That horse has seen things." Emily nodded. "I can tell. He's not just wild. Not with a brand like that. He belonged to someone. Someone who didn't treat him right." She looked up. "Should we call the authorities?" Ray shook his head. "You want him to show up and take him away? They'll put him down before they ask a single question." The words hung heavy in the air. Emily looked back at the Mustang. "Then he stays." Ray didn't answer, but after a moment, he turned and walked away. The barn was quiet again. The only sounds were the rustle of straw, the distant hoot of an owl, and the Mustang's labored breathing. Emily sat beside him in the stall, watching him fade in and out of sleep. His chest rose and fell with effort, but every breath seemed to anchor him more firmly to life. She wanted to give him a name, but didn't dare, not yet. Names carried weight. Names meant you were expecting something to stay. Still, She found herself whispering, "I'll take care of you. Whatever happened before, it's over." She thought maybe he understood, or maybe it was just wishful thinking. But for a moment, his head tilted, and his ears flicked toward her voice, soft and uncertain. Thunder rolled in the distance, dry and distant, but the horse stirred suddenly, his body going rigid. His eyes widened, and he jerked forward against the halter, slamming his hooves against the stall door. Panic. Real deep-set panic. Emily stood quickly, arms outstretched. Hey, it's okay. You're safe." He didn't believe her. His breathing turned ragged. He turned toward the corner of the stall and kicked the wall hard enough to splinter wood. She stepped closer, risking the swing of his body and the flailing of his hooves. "Stop. Please look at me." Slowly, as if yanked back from a dream, the Mustang turned his head. His eyes found hers again, wild, but no longer blind with fear. She pressed her palm against his neck. He didn't move. The thunder faded. So did his tremors. Emily let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Somewhere deep inside that battered frame, something strong still lived. Not just a horse's instinct, but a memory, a will, a buried fire. She didn't know what he had been before, or who had tried to extinguish him, but she knew one thing as surely as she knew her own name. This horse wasn't done yet, and neither was his story. Morning light poured into the barn like liquid gold, illuminating the dust motes drifting lazily in the air. Emily stood in the stall doorway, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the Mustang. He was awake now, standing barely. His weight awkwardly shifted to avoid pressure on his injured leg. His coat was less caked with blood and grime, revealing streaks of slate gray and black that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. She still hadn't given him a name. Somehow, it still felt too soon, like naming him might jinx the fragile piece they'd found. She stepped inside slowly, careful not to startle him. "Good morning," she said softly. The horse lifted his head, watching her with those sharp, haunted eyes. He didn't retreat this time when she approached. She took it as a win. She set a bucket of fresh water near him, along with oats mixed with cut apples. He sniffed it cautiously, then looked back at her. "You've got trust issues," she murmured, kneeling beside him. "Don't worry. So do I." He didn't eat. Not yet, but he didn't lash out either. She took her time, cleaning around the leg again, checking the bandage. The swelling had gone down slightly. She noticed him flinch every time she touched a certain patch of skin near the shoulder, where the brand had been burned deep. Later that morning, Emily sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open, searching through old livestock brand registries. Nothing matched. The shape burned into the Mustang's hide wasn't a ranch insignia. It was too exact, too sharp, like something manufactured. Her internet search broadened. Military programs, wild horse captures, experimental training units. Somewhere in the search results, she stumbled onto an article, dated years back, about a secretive military survival program that had involved using Mustangs for reconnaissance training. Most of the details were redacted, but one line stood out. Asterisk, only a few survived the conditioning. Those that did vanished. Asterisk. She leaned back in her chair, the silence of the kitchen pressing in. Her heart beat a little faster. Could he be one of them? If so, how had he ended up on the canyon trail, broken and alone? She heard boots on the porch. Her father stepped in, wiping dust from his hands. "You're up early." "I think he was trained," she said. "Not just broken. Trained." Ray didn't sit. He leaned against the doorframe, expression unreadable. "A lot of horses get trained. Not like this. I found something. There was this program. They conditioned Mustangs for combat zones. The branding's different. It's not a ranch mark. It's something else." Ray's eyes darkened. "I've heard rumors. Back when I was enlisted, they used to talk about horses that didn't flinch at gunfire, ones that could navigate terrain better than machines. Ghost horses, they called them. Most people thought it was just talk, morale stories. But one guy I knew, he said they really existed. Said they trained them too hard. Most didn't survive." Emily's breath caught. "You think he's one of them?" Ray didn't answer directly. "He's not a normal Mustang, that's for sure." She hesitated. "Do you think they'd come looking for him?" Ray looked out the window, his jaw tight. Depends on how badly they want their past back. She spent the afternoon in the barn, speaking softly to the Mustang, brushing the knots from his mane, watching his eyes track her movements more calmly than before. He still didn't eat much, but he accepted her presence now, even leaned slightly into her hand when she touched the unscarred side of his face. "I need to call you something," she whispered, resting her forehead against his. "I can't keep calling you boy." He blinked slowly. "Ghost," she said aloud. "That's what they called horses like you, right? You survived something no one believed in." The name settled around him like a second skin. She swore he stood a little straighter. That evening, she brought him outside for the first time. The ranch sat in a wide basin, ringed by rust-colored cliffs. The air smelled of dust and sunlight. Ghost limped slightly, favoring the leg, but he moved with quiet dignity. As he stepped into the paddock, he paused, taking in the space. Then he looked up, directly at the sky, as if surprised it was still there. Emily stood beside him, silent. Then slowly, she stepped back. Ghost didn't bolt. He didn't panic. He just breathed. Ray watched from the porch, arms folded. "He trusts you." "Not fully," she said, "but it's a start." That night, the storm rolled in fast. Thunder cracked above the ridge, and Ghost was inside the barn before the first raindrop hit the tin roof. Emily rushed to the stall, finding him pacing, nostrils flared, eyes wide with fear not of the storm itself, but of what the storm triggered. She entered the stall, hands raised. Hey, it's just thunder." He didn't respond. His legs trembled, and his breath came in shallow bursts. He was somewhere else, somewhere far away. She didn't know what memory held him captive, but she knew she had to reach him. She moved closer, one slow step at a time. "Ghost, you're not there anymore. You're here. With me." He reared suddenly, hooves striking the stall beam. She flinched, but didn't back down. "Look at me," she pleaded. "You're safe." And then he did. His front legs came down hard, but he didn't lash out again. His wild eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat, everything stilled. Rain battered the roof. Wind moaned through the cracks in the walls, but inside the stall, it was quiet. She stepped close and pressed her palm to his chest. His heartbeat thundered beneath her fingers, but it was real, present. "You're here now," she whispered, "and I won't let anyone hurt you again." The next morning, Ghost ate. Not just a few bites, he finished the whole bucket. Emily smiled through tears. She didn't know were there. It wasn't just about food. It was about will, about choosing to stay. Ray approached the stall quietly. He rested his arms on the top rail, eyes fixed on the horse. "I know that look." Emily glanced up. "He's not just surviving anymore. He's remembering how to live." She nodded. He just needed someone to remind him. Ray stepped back. "Be careful, Em. Some memories don't stay buried forever." Emily looked at Ghost. "Let them come. We'll face them." And somewhere behind the barn, deep in the dusty road that led to town, a distant engine roared. Low, steady, getting closer. Emily held the small metal fragment between her fingers, her brow furrowed. It was no larger than a coin, but it had been embedded deep beneath Ghost's scarred shoulder, hidden under layers of tissue. The vet had said it was likely a microchip, one that had shifted over time. It had taken a delicate hand to remove it without causing more pain. But now, here it was, cool, smooth, and humming with mystery. She placed it gently on a cloth on the workbench and turned to her laptop. The numbers etched into the chip weren't livestock registration. She'd run those already. But a few strange entries buried in archived military files hinted at something different, something darker. She clicked on a thread labeled Reclamation Protocol, typed 7 equine units. The page took forever to load, but when it did, Emily's breath caught. The horses had been coded, not named. Ghost's number matched one on the list, 7 EQ14, designated suitable for advanced reconnaissance, high-threat zones. Training included response to gunfire, silent tracking, and field isolation conditioning. A final note chilled her. Asterisk subject presumed lost after unauthorized escape during field test Alpha 7. Asterisk. Emily leaned back, hand over her mouth. So it was true. Ghost had been created for war. Not bred, not raised. created, and then, when he couldn't be controlled, discarded. That evening, she walked Ghost out to the corral. His leg was healing faster than expected, the swelling down, his gait stronger. But more than that, his posture had changed. He stood with his head high now. He no longer flinched at every gust of wind. The scars were still there, but they didn't seem to own him anymore. She held the chip in her palm and approached him. This was inside you. They tagged you like equipment. Ghost sniffed the metal piece, then stepped away. His reaction was neither fear nor recognition, just rejection. Whatever it meant, he had moved on. Emily tossed the chip into a rusted tin bucket and placed a lid over it. Some things didn't deserve to be remembered. She slipped a halter over Ghost's head and led him to the open paddock. Let's see what else you remember. For the first few steps, he was cautious, but as the space opened around him, something shifted. Emily gave him room, watching carefully. With a subtle hand signal, she motioned for him to walk a circle. He obeyed instantly. When she clicked her tongue twice, he stopped and faced her. Another signal. He backed up 3 steps. Her chest tightened. They trained you with hand signals. Ghost blinked, waiting. But you're not theirs anymore. She climbed onto the fence and whistled low. Come on, let's try something new. She grabbed an old saddle and gently placed it on his back. He stiffened but didn't resist. She didn't cinch it too tightly, just enough to let him remember the feel. Then, slow and careful, she mounted. Ghost didn't move. Not until she gave the lightest nudge with her heels. He stepped forward. Smooth. Controlled. Ray watched from the barn, his expression unreadable. Emily guided Ghost in a wide arc around the corral, then another. He moved like he had done this 1,000 times. Because he had. Just never with kindness. Never with choice. She dismounted after a few laps, rubbing his neck. You're not a soldier anymore. You're mine. If you'll have me. That night, over a quiet dinner, Ray spoke without looking up. I saw how he moved. Emily nodded. He still remembers it all. Ray's voice was low. Do you understand what that means? I do. They might come back for him. I won't give him up. He looked at her finally. Then we better be ready. The next day, an unfamiliar truck pulled up the long dirt road to the ranch. It was clean, too clean. Black. Government plates. Emily watched from the porch as 2 men stepped out. The first wore a dark jacket, military cut, and carried himself like someone used to being obeyed. The second stayed behind, arms crossed, sunglasses hiding his expression. The first man extended a hand. Colonel Briggs. U.S. Army retired. Emily didn't take the handshake. What do you want? Briggs smiled faintly. We're looking for a missing asset. A very valuable one. He's not an asset. He's a horse. Briggs nodded slowly. A horse trained under one of the most intensive programs ever authorized. He wasn't meant to survive in the wild. Frankly, we were surprised he did. He survived because he wanted to. Briggs's smile thinned. He's still government property. Not anymore. You abandoned him. You don't understand what he is. What he's capable of. Emily didn't flinch. I understand enough. Briggs glanced toward the barn. He's dangerous. Emily stepped in front of the door. Only to people who deserve it. There was a long silence. The second man stepped forward, placing a small case on the porch. Briggs opened it, revealing a stack of official documents. Authorization for seizure. You can fight it, but I promise, this paper holds. Ray came to stand beside her, shotgun resting in the crook of his arm. He didn't point it. He didn't have to. Briggs held up his hands. We're not here to cause trouble. We'll give you 1 day. Tomorrow morning, we expect compliance. The 2 men returned to the truck. As it rolled away, Emily's hands trembled, fists clenched at her sides. Ghost stood quietly behind the barn, watching everything. That night, Emily lay awake in the loft above the stalls, Ghost resting just below. She could hear his breathing, steady and calm. She reached down, fingers brushing through the wooden slats, touching his mane. We're not running, she whispered. You've run enough. Ghost shifted but didn't move away. In the distance, a coyote howled. The wind picked up, rustling the hay. tapping against the side of the barn like nervous fingers. She closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. When morning arrived, she would have to decide: obey the men in black, or fight for the horse who had already fought for his own life more times than she could count. The morning sky was pale and overcast, the kind of gray that promised something heavy. Emily stood in the center of the paddock, her fingers curled tightly around Ghost's lead rope. The Mustang stood beside her, calm but alert, his ears flicking forward at the sound of tires crunching over gravel. The black SUV returned, crawling up the long driveway like a predator who already knew its prey had nowhere to run. Ray stepped onto the porch, arms crossed, jaw set. He hadn't said much since last night. There hadn't been anything left to say. They both knew what this moment meant. Colonel Briggs climbed out, crisp as ever in his dark jacket, followed by two more men this time. One carried a tranquilizer gun. The other wore black gloves and didn't speak. Briggs offered a polite nod, then looked toward the horse. "Miss Harper, I hope you've reconsidered." Emily didn't move. "He's not yours anymore." Briggs exhaled slowly, like a man weary of explaining things to children. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to fulfill protocol." "He's not a protocol. He's a living being." Briggs stepped closer, now just a few feet away. His gaze shifted to Ghost. "This animal was built for a singular purpose. What you're doing, what you think is compassion, is dangerous. He was trained in psychological warfare, isolation response, and perimeter tracking. You don't understand what he is." "I understand exactly what he is," Emily said. "He's a survivor, not your weapon." "People die during that program," Briggs replied coldly. "We shut it down for a reason. But subjects like him, if left uncontrolled, pose unpredictable risks." "Subjects," she repeated, the word like poison in her mouth. "Is that how you sleep at night?" The man with the tranquilizer gun raised the barrel, taking a step forward. Ghost's body tensed instantly, eyes locking on the weapon. Emily stepped between them, spreading her arms. "You'll have to go through me." Briggs gave her a long, flat look. "That can be arranged." Ray's voice cut through the tension. "You take another step, and I swear I'll make damn sure you regret it." He stood with the shotgun now, no longer cradled idly, but held with purpose. He didn't shout, didn't posture. He simply stood his ground, eyes hard as stone. Briggs hesitated. "We have authority." Ray took one step forward. "You have paper. That's all." Emily heard Ghost snort behind her, shifting his weight. She turned slowly, unclipping the lead rope. "You're free to go," she whispered, resting a hand on his neck. "If you run, I won't blame you." But Ghost didn't run. Instead, he walked forward, past her, past the gun, past the edge of fear, and stood between her and Briggs. Briggs stared at the horse in silence. His posture changed slightly, a ripple of unease beneath his professional mask. "He remembers me." Emily glanced sideways. Maybe he remembers everything. Briggs stepped back. The tranquilizer man lowered his weapon. "We were trying to build something perfect," Briggs said quietly. "An animal that could act on instinct, execute under pressure, survive the worst conditions imaginable." Emily looked down at Ghost. "And when he became more than a tool, you threw him away." Briggs didn't answer. Ray stepped closer now, voice lower. "He chose to live. You don't get to take that from him." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Briggs raised a hand to his men. They stood down. He exhaled slowly, frustration tightening his jaw. "We'll file a statement of refusal. It won't end here." Emily's voice was steady. "Yes, it will." Briggs met her eyes one last time, then turned and walked to the SUV. The door shut with a soft thud, and the vehicle rolled back down the driveway, swallowed by dust and distance. The silence left behind was deafening. Ray lowered the shotgun, but his eyes stayed on the road. "They'll come back." Emily reached up and brushed a hand down Ghost's neck. "Then we'll be ready." That night, under the stars, she stood alone in the pasture. Ghost grazed nearby, every so often glancing up to check on her. There was peace in his eyes now, not absence of fear, but something braver. Acceptance. Ray joined her after a while, standing quietly beside her. "You know," he said. "I never thought I'd see you fight like that." Emily gave a small smile. "I never thought I'd have something worth fighting for." Ray nodded. "You always did. You just didn't know it." She looked at Ghost. Neither did he. The next morning, Ghost galloped through the open pasture, stronger than ever. Emily watched him from the fence, her hands resting over her heart. He moved with grace, with memory, with freedom. His scars would never fade, and neither would hers. But they no longer defined either of them. Later, she mounted him again, this time without reins or saddle. He accepted her easily, the trust between them wordless, forged in fire. Together, they rode along the ridge, the wind rushing past them, the world stretching endlessly ahead. As the sun broke through the morning haze, casting gold over the hills, Emily leaned forward and whispered, "They thought you were just an injured Mustang." Ghost's ears flicked back toward her, waiting. But what you carried inside, it left everyone stunned. And somewhere far below, a forgotten file sat locked in a drawer, stamped terminated. But Ghost's story had only just begun. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing. I bring true, heartfelt stories every day.